Yep, here we go. I want to make this video with as much decorum as I possibly can have under the circumstances. I want the children and teenagers and high schools, and I want professors and educators and civil servants to hear this, because I be hearing some foolishness. And I'm here to tell you, y'all sound stupid. And look, I want to talk about breaking the chains of the indoctrination. I broke them. I broke the chains of indoctrination with the Europeans' concept of hypocrisy, corruption, and the insatiable appetite for drug abuse and the miseducation. I broke it. I broke the chains. Yeah. And when I say I broke them, I really mean I broke them. I say that to say this. You know, I doubt that many of you who utter the words American democracy have ever actually read the U.S. Constitution. I hear the phrase from U.S. presidents and presidential candidates, senators, congressmen, and congresswomen, local politicians, the media, and the press. Phrases like, the U.S. democracy is weaker now, or voters are worried about the state of U.S. democracy, or democracy and voting rights, or save our democracy, or Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. No, the United States of America and its Constitution is not a democracy. The Constitution guarantees but one thing: it does not guarantee you the right trial or speedy trial. It doesn't give you a guarantee to due process. It doesn't give you a guarantee to freedom of speech. It doesn't give you a guarantee of the Second Amendment. The only thing the Constitution explicitly guarantees is a republic form of government. Now, you elected officials and others sound so damn stuck on stupid and ill-informed about the language and the meaning of the words in the U.S. Constitution. Ben Franklin, he'd be turning over in his grave and cursing you all from beyond for uttering the words U.S. democracy and implying America is a democracy. The USA has never been a democracy, and under the current constitutional construction, the USA will never be a democracy. Ben Franklin was totally opposed to the USA becoming a democracy because he feared that under a democracy, a group rule or a mob rule would overtake the government. And he was opposed to democracy for that reason. He was adamantly opposed to it. So Ben Franklin placed what is now called the Guarantee Clause, which is Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. Now, pursuant to Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, guarantees a republic form of government and to every state. That is the republic form of government. Therefore, the USA is a republic, and under a put it like this. Do you remember your Pledge of Allegiance in public schools in America? Remember the phrase? It goes, it goes something like this. It says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Republic. There. Now, under democracy form of government, the popular vote would elect the president of the USA. While under a republic form of government, the people elect their representative, and the representatives in government cast a vote on whoever candidate they determine to best represent their interests and not necessarily the interests and the will of the people who elected them to office as their representative in the first place. Meanwhile, you all should go back and take a refresher course in civics and a continuing legal education in constitutional law. I'm speaking about politicians, civil servants, those elected officials, all you all espousing democracy and save our democracy and vote for democracy. You're foolish. You sound stupid. And you shouldn't be miseducating the public with that foolishness about this being a democracy and that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. It's not no democracy. So he can't hurt nothing about no democracy. He's no threat to democracy. We're not even a democracy. Y'all spreading this false allegations on that man like that when you know it ain't even no damn democracy. God damn, you sound stupid. You know, the Southern Confederates who uphold slavery had an old slogan, and that slogan was, I used to see it when I was a kid. The slogan is, the South will rise again. That's the Dixiecrats slogan. The Dixiecrats and the Democrats were the same group. The Dixiecrats took off their wigs and became Democrats, but it's the same party. They still represent slavery and upholding slavery. The Republicans, who wanted to save the Union and stop the expansion of slavery westward, have a slogan. It is over. It isn't over. That's the slogan. It isn't over. That's the Republicans. So come this November 2024, we will have reached critical mass, and this presidential election may be the second hottest winter we ever had on record. The Civil War was the first hottest winter we ever had on record. Please bear with me. I'm over 65 years of age, and my mind tends to roam in the shadow zone from time to time. So I had to write down my thoughts and read from my notes, else I forget and present a wandering mind and a disjointed lecture. Well, I'm over 65 years of age. When I was a younger man, about the age of 22, I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, upon enlisting in the United States Army, 1st Infantry Division, 11 Bravo. I had no combat experience, no conflicts I engaged in, and I got honorable discharge in a short period of time. I went in during the Iranian crisis in 1980 when Americans were taken hostage. We were placed on yellow alert in basic training. At the time I took that oath, I had never really read or studied the U.S. Constitution more fully. Over 42 years, and during my constitutional research and study and litigations, I came to the realization that the oath that I took was a mistake. I made a mistake taking that oath. It was a mistake because I realized that my enemy is the U.S. Constitution, the drafters of the Constitution, and those who enforce the U.S. Constitution for the following grounds. At the time the Constitution was ratified, my descendants were not citizens. Another two. Article 1, Section 3 has us 3/5 of a person, not a whole person, 3/5 of a person. A free person is counted as a whole number. He's 5/5, a whole number. 3/5, you're not a whole person. Three, there's no mention of enslaved persons within the plain text of the Constitution. 4. Article 1, Section 9, subsection 1, importation of persons taxed $10 per slave. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Article 1, Section 9(1) is hidden about the slaves. They're speaking about importing slaves and taxing the people $10 per slave after 1809 or something like that. But in the writing, they said importation of persons per person. They didn't call people slaves, the slaves. They didn't call the enslaved slaves. They call them persons. For posterity purposes, they hid anything in there about slavery. The framers hid any language about enslaved Africans while drafting the Constitution. Now let's go down to 5. The 13th Amendment in 1865. No slavery except as punishment for conviction of a felony and in prison. So you're going to punish me with slavery if I go to prison under the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, 1868. All persons born or naturalized in the U.S. are citizens of the United States. Now, let's talk about this again. There's that all persons. Remember? Now, the Constitution, they want to distort this. First, they don't want to say slave, they're calling you a person. But now, if you think we are citizens, African Americans, descendants of slaves, if you think we are citizens under the 14th Amendment, then explain this. When have the USA ever enslaved a citizen of the United States of America? I'm waiting. When has the U.S. ever enslaved a citizen of the United States of America? Never. So, if an African descendant of slaves, a black man or woman, goes to prison in the USA, he or she goes into slavery pursuant to the 13th Amendment. So, you can't be a citizen and go into slavery. Now, when a white, Caucasian, or European, when they go into prison system in the United States, they're not enslaved, they're citizens. They're just in prison. But African descendant of slaves, you go into prison, you're enslaved under the 13th Amendment. So you're not no citizen of this nation. You never was, and you never will be under the current construction of the Constitution. Therefore, African descendant of slaves are not citizens at any given point. Nowhere in the 13th Amendment does it say no slavery within the United States of America. It says no slavery except you go to prison. They put a condition on slavery. You go to prison, we're putting you in slavery. So how then, let's go on, let me keep going. I want to get here first. The Constitution continues to this day to consider African descendants of slaves 3/5 person. The Constitution has never been amended to change 3/5 person to a whole number 5/5 person. They never did it. It's still in there. So therefore, why do you think you're able? The law enforcement is murdering us in our homes, in the street, in our churches, in our cars, with impunity by the courts, the district attorney, the prosecutor, the government, the governors, because you are not a citizen. You don't really have those rights like that. You're still considered property. If you're 3/5 of a person, you're still property. Now, so I say that to say, of course, I made a mistake taking the oath and pledging allegiance to the United States of America. And I am not even considered a citizen of this nation according to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 3. To me, I now understand the U.S. Constitution's value to be worthless unless to use as toilet tissue to wipe my gluteus maximus and burn it afterwards. That's all the Constitution is good for as a black man. Listen, when Thomas Jefferson was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he's the third president of the United States. When he was in Philadelphia at the Constitutional Convention drafting the U.S. Constitution, the Dixiecrats, the southern states, threatened to walk out and leave the Constitutional Convention and destroy any chance of the United States of America becoming united. If Thomas Jefferson and others placed any language in the Constitution, excuse me, and if they placed any language in the Constitution relating to Africans enslaved in America. So, for posterity purposes and to save the making of the United States of America, they reached a compromise. The compromise is that there would be no mentioning of slaves, enslaved Africans, within the framework of the final draft of the U.S. Constitution. For posterity purposes, no, don't put that in there. We don't want no one to know we ever had slaves. Don't discuss that. Please. No, I never. Yeah, that's posterity. They want to hide it. They wanted to hide it, and they did a good job. Now, Thomas Jefferson was not supposed to be the third president of the United States. No, in fact, Benjamin Franklin was supposed to have been the third president of the United States, and Thomas Jefferson was supposed to have been the fourth president of the United States. But an incident occurred between Benjamin Franklin and his political rival, Aaron Burr. And that rival that they had resulted in a duel. And in that duel, Aaron Burr shot dead the would-be third president of the United States of America, Ben Franklin. And bumped up as a result of Ben Franklin being murdered by Aaron Burr, Thomas Jefferson is bumped up to the third president spot. And in 1801 to 1809, Thomas Jefferson was the president of the United States and served 2 terms. Then Thomas Jefferson's first term, from 1801 to 1805, Aaron Burr was appointed his vice president. The same Aaron Burr that just killed Ben Franklin, the would-be third president. This sounds criminal to me. This sounds like this might be bordering on a conspiracy that kill Ben Franklin. Thomas Jefferson, you get to bump up to the third president, and you point Aaron Burr as your vice president, and we get rid of Ben Franklin. That sounds a little shaky. How would you put the criminal who murdered the would-be third president to appoint him to the vice president right after he done just murdered the would-be Man, this is a criminal enterprise here. You are a criminal gangster. That is criminal. And you talk about justice? Ah, please. Now I want to say this. When Thomas Jefferson was writing that Declaration of Independence, he says, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. End of quote. Well, talk about Jefferson a little bit. I got some real personal knowledge about Jefferson, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. And as I get to it, if you go to my channel, I don't have but 2 or 3 videos. I don't make videos. But if you go to my channel, you'll see where I got a video, maybe 2 minutes, showing when I received 2 or 3 years ago, I received my Ancestry DNA kit. And I took the test. I got the results. It was interesting. It was enlightening. And I'll reveal some of that in a minute. And it's related to Thomas Jefferson here. Jefferson had an enslaved African boy named Jupiter Evans by his side to care for him at the Constitutional Convention. Jefferson had his enslaved mistress, Sally Hemings, hidden away in a secret room in his home where he would often have sexual encounters with her. Thomas Jefferson had many children by enslaved Africans. He fathered or sired many children. Thomas Jefferson married a 12-year-old. My fifth, here's where the DNA comes in on me at. My fifth great grandmother, Eliza Coleman, was the front gatekeeper at the Monticello plantation owner Thomas Jefferson in Virginia. Thomas Jefferson was a pedophile, a sexual predator, a rapist, a hypocrite, and a scoundrel. In fact, the first 10 signatures of the U.S. Constitution owned slaves, and Africans were enslaved by first 10 signatures to the Constitution. Whereas, the way I see it, the U.S. Constitution is a worthless piece of feces of a document that should be used as toilet paper and then burned. So in conclusion, I want to call attention to the members of the Million Man Black Man March in Washington, D.C. in the 90s. In light of the turbulent days America is facing as we come closer and closer to the 2024 presidential election, to the Million Black Men from Million Man March, you do remember the speech in March, in our March on Washington, where we were then informed, excuse me, during that Million Man March, the speech given was that the Constitution was intended for the, and the land was intended for the real citizens of this nation. Not you, not us, not black people. No, not us. We weren't considered citizens. So this fight for this country, I guess the media has branded, coined the phrase, this is a fight for the soul of democracy and for our country. Well, We black people, we have no fighter in this fight. We have no interest in the outcome of this election, either way, Democrat or Republican. It is not our fight. So please do not take part or risk your life, your precious life, defending this country that allows police to murder us blacks in the streets, in our homes, in our stores, our churches, the prisons, jails, in our cars. Meanwhile, I will suggest to stock up on ammunition, guns, firearms, first aid, medicine, food, water, clothing, and lighting. Embrace for impact because this may be the second hottest winter we ever had. Between November, day after election day, and January 25th, 2025, somebody's got to lose and somebody's got to win, or nobody's got to win. That is what we're faced with. We have reached critical mass. But I want to sit back and watch as a black man in the Million Man March members tell another member, black man, don't participate, sit down, watch, or prepare, but don't involve yourself in this. This is not our fight. No, it's not our fight. No, bro. No, it's not us. Leave that alone. In fact, I want to watch this government burn and fall to the ground. I want to what? I want to walk on the ashes of the fallen buildings and take my cigar and light it from the embers of the ashes that I walk on. For this evil empire you call America, I want to see it fall to the ground. I don't want her to save nothing. I don't want her to be saved by nothing. So I said, get ready.